Yo, guys, what's going on? Lucky Cheese 7 is back again to give you guys Eden Zero Chapter 204 Point Origin. And I don't even know where to start. I said that last chapter with the whole revelation that Ziggy is, Shiki from the future, but oh my god, this chapter though, holy shit. Um, let's go ahead and say this. That if my big gripe with the last chapter was that, you know, we didn't really get so much on Ziggy's backstory because it was the end of volume 23, so obviously we were gonna get a little glimpse of an inkling as to what was happening, given that the last few chapters of volume 23 were doing that in a nutshell. This chapter though kind of makes up for it in a huge way, especially since chapter 204 is the beginning of volume 24. And that's something we should take into account here is that this volume is just starting. And with that said, I should go ahead and just go into the nitty and gritty of the chapter itself. So we see the cover page of Pino looking like she used her EMP on Happy. Log, skip, save, off. So like it's actually rather amusing to say the least. Pino uses EMP attack. Happy's systems are shut down. Chapter 204.0, which is interesting because I thought for a second that Chapter 204 was going to be titled Universe Zero, but you know, changes happen along the way. But that's besides the point. So let's talk about this. Everything is connected. You have Shiki say, "You're me from 20,000 years in the future." What are you talking about? And then Ziggy, I'm still gonna call him Ziggy, by the way, because if you say it's gonna make it a little more confusing. You gotta say future Shiki, Ziggy. I mean, it's like the whole Danny Phantom situation. You had Danny Phantom, and then you had future Danny, or Dark Danny, if you will. But I'm gonna keep calling him Ziggy. To be precise, I am a Shiki from an alternate universe. Kind of goes in line with what I said that maybe this could have been uh Shiki from Universe 2. Maybe, but so that's the point. You are the Shiki of Universe 3. And it goes back to what I said before and stream it a couple days ago. Because Shiki's like alternate universe. Thus Ziggy says, before you ask, the Shiki from Universe 1 was killed by Dragon. And that's something I've always stated before. Is that those sequences of events still happened. That Shiki did in fact die. And people want to rub it up as, oh no, it's just reversing the effects. No, that universe still happened. Therefore, Shiki did die in that universe. So it doesn't negate anything. That still plays a part, ultimately. And then Ziggy says this. Remember the explosion on planet Nero 66 3 years ago? That is where it all began. You had the choice to run from or stop the explosion. And it's interesting because we immediately flash back to that scene when Ziggy's like, let me celebrate my birthday by activating these bombs, if you will. And, in that same chapter, you had Shiki going, like, what do you mean bombs? The bombs Shiro and Nero were just talking about. 20,000 antimatter bombs on this planet. And when I first read that, I was like, yo, wait a second. 20,000 antimatter bombs 20,000 years later. And I had to actually go back and check on the chapter just to make sure. Because I was like, yo, wait, did that actually happen was that wording actually accurate? And it was. Because the exact line of dialogue here from chapter 164 is this. because you have Ziggy saying, "Here, I want you to celebrate my birthday." He activates it, now activating 20,000 Imperial antimatter bombs. Rebecca saying no, and then you had Ziggy saying, "With your deaths, the wheel of fate will be complete." Automatically meaning that, yeah, it would have led down to the road we're on right now with Shiki, but obviously that's not what happened because, let's jump to the chapter itself. Detonation in 20 minutes. And yet Happy say, "We have to hurry and get out of here." Wait, can't we stop them? And Pino says, "It would be impossible. The terminal is down." He used the independent all link system network to activate them. And Shiki says, "What's going to happen to the planet?" "I estimate it'll be destroyed. But but there will be lots of people on this planet." And yet Rebecca say, "I know how you feel, Shiki, but there's nothing we can do." "No, I'm gonna stop it." And then Rebecca once again says, I think that was Rebecca who said it in the chapter, right? I want to say that. If not, then it is what it is. We have to get out if we want to live. And this is where things shift because if you remember, in the fork in the road, that's when Zhao Mei stepped in. Here, that's not the case because Ziggy says you are the Shiki who chose to get out, and then Shiki says no, I'll stop it, and Ziggy continues to say, "I'm the Shiki who chose to stop the explosion. I used my gravity power to compress all 20,000 bombs in an attempt to destroy them. But then something happened. Something we couldn't have foreseen. When my gravity was compressed as far as it would go, it resonated with Rebecca's power to jump through time. And it caused a space time distortion. In that distortion, I, Rebecca, and the 20,000 antimatter bombs ignited an inexplicably large burst of power. And immediately that catches Shiki's attention because Ziggy continues to go on to say every antimatter bomb that went off had enough energy to jump forward 1 year in time. Think about that for a second. Had enough power or enough energy to jump forward 1 year in time. So think about it like this: one bomb, you jump forward 1 year in time. You had 20,000 bombs. Do the math calculations. Jump 20,000 years in the future, and it that says. And Rebecca and I were thrown 20,000 years into the future. To which again Shiki says, "And you expect me to believe all that?" I'm sure you don't. I didn't believe it myself, but I had no choice but to accept reality. And then this is when we jump forward, or I should say, jump back to Ziggy's timeline, if you will, of what would have happened in Universe Zero. The year X2492, the planet Eden, which I'm still calling to say that this planet itself could be what Granville looks like. Because if you look at the infrastructure, everything that's placed here, from the designs, especially the certain layouts, it looks like Granville, just very futurized. That's the gist that I'm getting at here, just based on the landscaping. Like it seems, I don't want to say it seems too obvious, but it, I don't. It just screams future Granville to me. But yeah, the planet Eden, and in that you have these robot hands. My body, my body. I'm a bot now. Obviously, this is still Shiki. He's waking up. Please calm down, Ziggy. I'm not Ziggy. I'm Ziggy, Ziggy. And as he's saying that, you can see that his short circuits are firing, and he's going, and all the bots are like, "Calm down. He wasn't ready to be activated. Shut off his power. Where am I? Where's everybody? Where are my friends?" So, based on just this page alone, we could still tell this is in fact still Shiki, based on the looks of things. You see him there, and the bot says, "Once we get some better parts, we can rebuild you even better. So just put up with that for now." I can't remember anything. Was I human? Yes, originally, but your body was severely damaged. We had to replace it with a mechanical one. And I mean, that makes sense because if you remember in the last chapter, when you see how Shiki was, he looked really beat up, like super, super beat up. Like his lower torso was gone. He was missing an arm. I think it was from both. I think he was missing both hands, if you will. But and his eye was clearly stabbed at by Shura. Based on that, uh, I'm a bot. I feel like there was someone else. And the robot says, "Unfortunately, the woman was far too gone. We couldn't revive her." And obviously, Ziggy's like, "Rebecca. It's Rebecca. It's Rebecca. I remember. Rebecca. She's my friend. Where is she? Let me see here. As I just told you." And again, this is technically still Shiki talking here. This is still Shiki. Shiki's going like, "She won't care if I'm a robot. She says it doesn't matter if you're a human or a machine. You can be friends with anyone." And oh my god, I'm not gonna lie. Like this really took me back to chapter one. This like that line of dialogue by itself. Oh my god, like, I thought that was a nice speech in chapter one, but for it to come back into this situation, because you still have Shiki going like, "Where is she?" "Oh, very well, this way." So they're taking him. He's walking into a room, if you will. And if you notice, that I'm not saying the doors themselves look exactly similar to the Ethereum doors or the 3173 door that's on the Eden Zero ship, but you see Shiki walking in essentially, and you see Rebecca, and oh my god, like the fact that she's strapped up, the fact that she has like all these plugs like kind of like injected in there, like it's crazy. It honestly speaking, I was like, damn. I felt bad for Shiki. I really did. I was like, holy shit. And remember, this is technically this is still Shiki from Universe 2. She was in even worse shape when we found her. We thought we could at least repair her exterior. So that kind of makes you wonder the state Rebecca was in. Obviously, I'm pretty sure, given that they said that it's kind of like what happens, like, when you have an accident of sorts. When you have an accident like that happen, um, but okay, sorry about that, guys. Just had a little text message I needed to take care of. But this whole scenario here, um, it's like this. It's like, let's say, you know, you get into an accident, and then it's kind of like you had to stitch up the body. So whatever Rebecca looked like before, I mean, it had to have been pretty brutal. And you see the look on Shiki's face. She was in even worse shape when we found her. We thought we could at least repair her exterior. Man, poor Shiki. Like, you just see how he's reacting. He's like, no, no, it's not true. It's not. No, it's not true. It's not true. Like, he's in total disbelief here. Don't get too close. She's a valuable research specimen. Even after death, keyword here, even after death, she is emitting an unknown ether signal. And Shiki still, he's still kind of going off. He's like, "What did you do to Rebecca? Don't worry, I'm coming to save her." And right when he's saying all this research team, they're like, "No, shut him down. Shut Ziggy down." 20,000 years in the future, because we're seeing this whole thing, and we're cutting back to the present for a brief moment. And you have Ziggy saying 20,000 years in the future, the human race is extinct. It's a world full of machines who all believe in Mother. A few decades passed. I almost completely forgot who I was, and I lived like all the other androids. Then, one day. So keep that in mind. A few decades passed. So at the very least, like 20 to 30 years had passed by for Shiki at that specific point. And by then, it's like Ziggy said, he completely forgot who he was, and he lived like every other android. And it's interesting because by this point, we see Ziggy, and he looks almost identical to who he was, like, to his design. I say almost because he still looks a little slim um, from certain angles. You don't really get to see the cape yet, if you will. But he's staring at Rebecca, and he says, "After all these years, you haven't changed. I can't remember who you are anymore." Oh my god. Yo, when I saw this, when he said, "I can't even remember who you are anymore," I was like, damn. Like, yo. Like, I thought the whole thing about Rebecca's speech tugged at my heartstrings, but this, oh my hero. And this isn't something that Hero isn't like new to. Because again, you go back to Rave Master. See how he handled shit there as the same thing. And I was expecting this. I was expecting to get hit in the field with this chapter, but oh my god. This line of dialogue. Still. Can't remember who you are, but I'd like to see you alive. I heard that you and I were friends in the distant past. It's hard to believe, but apparently I used to be human too. Of course, I have absolutely no memory of that now. And then you have one of the androids come up saying, "Ziggy, we need to talk." That catches his attention. And then we see these guys, if you will. I don't even know who they're supposed to be, but they look like they're like the head of the heads of the cosmos. If you will. Okay, not the head of the heads, but of, you know, let's call them the overseers. I think that's a better word. They're like the overseers. And there's like one, two, three, there's like five of them. And they're all standing there, and then you have Ziggy over there too. Time traveling ether. As a result of decades of research on the woman's ether, we've determined that she has the power to distort space time and travel through time. This means there's hope. We tried to come up with some kind of plan. Maybe now we can accomplish one. And Ziggy's like, Wait, what are you talking about? Ziggy, you are a big part of all of this. You are a big part of all of this." And then, that next panel we see Mother. The cosmoses have lost Mother and are on the path to destruction. Eventually, the ether will run out, and the life functions of every android in the cosmos will cease. We must restore the cosmos to what they are meant to be, a world where Mother exists and where humankind flourishes. I think it's like humankind. Yes, we think the extinction of humans led to the loss of Mother. Without Mother, the cosmos' ether is diminishing, and now we androids too are nearing our end. I still don't quite understand what you're saying, is what Shiki's saying. Ziggy's. Because he's at this point he is Ziggy, you know, design wise and everything. Ziggy, have you heard of the power called the Eye of God? Which that to me is kind of hinting at maybe it's related to Noah, and I'm saying maybe. There's a huge possibility that this is leading to Noah in some way, shape, or form. It is the power to observe alternate worlds, parallel universes, other worlds different from our own, different timelines. We call them universes. And this is where things get really fascinating. And I mean really fascinating, like with the lore and everything. There are an infinite number of them. There appear to be an infinite number of them. And we have been observing them for more than 10,000 years. But humans go extinct 20,000 years ago. And the cosmos either dry up in nearly every one of them. In nearly every one of them. All except for point zero, universe zero. That is the world where all time converges. Even with our technology, we cannot observe it. Thus, we may say it is the only world with potential for a better outcome. There is a strong possibility that the events of Universe Zero all, affect those of all other universes. And that, Ziggy, is where you come in. And I like how they specifically word it like that. And that is where you come into play, Ziggy. It's like, I don't know. There's something about these guys, like right off the get go, where they're talking about this, and I'm like, is there some other ulterior motive behind this? Because I don't know. The way they're talking about this, it's like, yeah, we have to do this to save mankind. But then that kind of makes me wonder, like, is there something else you're not telling him? Is there? Just saying. But then, that following panel, we see Rebecca, like, still kind of strapped up, if you will. All the cords and whatnot. You are to use the woman's ether to go to Universe Zero, 20,000 years in the past. And to prevent, this is the key thing, and to prevent the extinction of the human race. Wait, a mission like that? It's, I couldn't. Only you can do this. You were a human that lived 20,000 years ago, and now you are an android. You have the heart of both kinds. And Ziggy, says, but I have no memories of being human. Don't worry. If anyone can do it, you can. But how can I go 20,000 years into the past? And oh my god, the way Hero ties everything in right now. It all goes to the B cube, Rebecca's B cube. We will build a ship to travel across space time, the Eden Zero, and a ship going from the planet Eden to point zero. And again, this is a theory I kind of had last week that maybe planet Eden very well could be Granville. And I think based on the ending of this chapter, that's looking to be more plausible. I'm calling that right now. I'm 100% thinking that yes, Planet Eden. The fact that they said Planet Eden to point zero to me means it's going to be Granville. I think. I could be totally off. I could be totally off here, but it's just a theory I have. Now, with that said, there are still some interesting things I want to take away from this chapter, and that is Rebecca. And the fact that she's hooked up the way she is in that room, and the fact that we have, room, that specific room, 3173, I believe. Let me double check. Because there is a specific room number in that. I know these things off the top of my head usually. But let's see here. That's that. 3173. That's what the number was. So 3173. The fact that we don't know what's behind that door, I'm now starting to really sit on the theory that that could be Rebecca. The Rebecca we're seeing right now in this chapter, that she's the one who's behind the door. Because we know 3173 is related to Therion. So I don't think it's that much of a stretch to think, yes, this, whatever's behind room 3173 is going to be Rebecca. I can definitely say that for sure. There's a couple other things though that we need to take into account here with this though, because we still don't know specifically how Shiki turns evil, like Ziggy in this case, because everything based on this, there's nothing in this chapter that still indicates on how Ziggy got to the point that he's at right now, where he wants to eliminate the human race. None of that's still there. And if we go back to chapter 100, there is that weird presence that was shown in that final panel where it looked like Ziggy was reawakening. And the big theory a lot of people had, including myself, is that maybe somebody was behind it. Like it felt a little strange that okay, at that specific point, like Ziggy like reawakens, someone else was behind it, or maybe it was a failsafe. Maybe there's a possibility that there was a failsafe that was put in the Ziggy in case it doesn't go out the way it does. Now, based on the way this chapter is given, the fact that these guys want Ziggy to save humanity, to me, it does still kind of showcase that okay, Ziggy's not the through line overarching villain of the story like we all initially thought. And I do get the idea that there is still something else behind this because I know based on the Heroes manga that Hero did, we had Lucia, we had Seraph, and then there was Ziggy. And I still remember when we got that was the final chapter. I think it was the final chapter of Heroes, but Ziggy was there, and a lot of us were like, "Huh? Like, what is that supposed to indicate?" And then I think it was like a few months later, right? We got chapter 101, and then it was like, "Oh shit, we're setting up Ziggy as the final boss." And given that this is where we're heading to, I mean, like I said, this is still the beginning of volume 24. So to me, this is still kind of showcasing that we're ending uh the storyline between Shiki and Ziggy. And whatever comes from this point is what's gonna lead into um the threat, like the overarching threat. Like because like I said, I'm still under the belief that Ziggy reawakening wasn't just a massive coincidence and somebody was behind it. And it goes back to a point I made. There's still Xenolith, the man or the bot who taught Ziggy. Where does he fit into all of this? That's something to take into account because he did say, I was Ziggy's mentor. And now we know Ziggy is Shiki from Universe 2. So it's interesting. It's a really, really interesting and fascinating approach to take. And if anything, this chapter, for anyone who downplays Hero because of Fairy Tale, this should give y'all a reality check. A huge, massive reality check. I mean, I've been screaming it for years that if your experience with Hero was through Fairy Tale, y'all need to go check out Rave Master. And I'm gonna say here right now, and I can't believe it, it's actually come to this point. I think depending on how Eden Zero goes, it has potential to overtake Rave. And I never thought I would say that, but it all depends on where we go moving forward from where we are currently. I mean, look, the flashback's only just beginning. We still need to get how Ziggy, met the four shining stars, and him meeting Elsie, but also at the same time, him running into baby Shiki. There's still all of that we got to encompass, and of course, what's behind room 3173, which I'm already assuming, yes, it's most likely Rebecca. The fact that they said, "Oh yeah, we have to use her ability to travel back in time 20,000 years in the past." So I don't know. I mean, we've been at this for almost 32 minutes, and it's been a really, really fun live stream discussion. And I'm gonna say this: if a chapter can make me, sit here and just speculate and just spitball ideas of like where we can go, and I said this in the last room too, then you're doing an amazing job with your story. You're doing an amazing job with your story and the possible directions we could go in. And this chapter certainly did explain a lot of stuff because now the whole decapitation scene that happened in the Alloy War, now, you know, that makes sense because we see what happened to Shiki. He became a bot. So obviously, him being decapitated, that wasn't going to do anything to him now. But that still leads to the question. So, how exactly did, Ziggy get his original face back? That's something to take into account too. And I'm not sure. And I think that's one of the beauties of this chapter is that the direction we could go into. I mean, I'm still perplexed by the fact that you have these 20,000 antimatter bombs with Rebecca's ability and Shiki just compressing all that. That's how we jump to the whole 20,000 year later. And that's an amazing writing tactic, if you will. Like, I love how that whole scenario, like, that sense of choice is what leads to Ziggy. And of course, we also had Ziggy in that timeline too with Shiki. So I know some people are probably confused, like, wait, but if we have Ziggy there, how does it's one of those theories, if I remember correctly, it's called a bootstrap time leap, if I remember correctly, where you know similar outcomes occur. Actually, here, let me pull up the exact scene. There's an exact so it's kind of what okay, so it's actually called a bootstrap paradox. And essentially what it is for anybody that doesn't know, it's a theoretical paradox of time travel. That occurs when a piece of information is sent back in time, becomes trapped within. Uh, like, what's the word? Within an infinite cause of effect, becomes trapped within an infinite cause effect loop, in which the item can no longer has an discernible point of origin and is caused to be or and is said to be uncaused or self-created. It is also known as the ontological paradox in reference to ontology, a branch of metaphysics dealing with the study of being and existence. Like, so I'm not going to go further into that, but it's it's a simple expression called "pull one over a fence by one's bootstraps." That's ultimately where the term came from, and I think that really is going to showcase here in this chapter that no matter what was going to happen with Shiki, it was ultimately going to lead into that road where he makes the decision to say, "Let's stop the bombs. Let's save the planet," and it would have eventually led him to becoming Shiki. But it would have led him to becoming Ziggy. But that's not what happened with Universe 3. Universe 3 was created because Shiki went the other direction. He said, no, let's go the other direction. And that, again, has to be because of Xiao Mei. Xiao Mei played a part in that. You're in a fork in the road. There's two paths. One doesn't know what path leads for the other person. And again, that's a super fascinating idea now because now we know what would have happened if Shiki did go the other mile to say, no, let's go here. And for Hero to take this approach, I mean, again, I just got to give him the massive claps for pulling off a chapter like this. And for anyone who's curious about my rating on the chapter, I'm gonna give it pure perfection. Like if last week's chapter was an amazing to an amazing plus, this chapter simply put is pure perfection. And boy, I cannot wait to see what we get in the following chapters because this is only just the beginning. Uh, Let me be frank with you. This is still only just the beginning of Ziggy's origins. And we're only going to learn about more stuff within the coming weeks. So, with that said, that's pretty much all I got to say when it comes to this week's chapter of Eden Zero. I mean, if I had to talk about a few more points, there was something I noticed with the chapter where, you know, you had Rebecca tied up, if you will. And if you correlate that back to chapter one, what happened in chapter one? Rebecca was tied up. So it's interesting how you have these little parallels to chapter one, but they hold like a much darker context to it now. And it's crazy because in chapter one, we find out, Shiki is stuck on a planet full of bots. And, given with what happens to Shiki, he's stuck on a planet with bots. Only, in chapter one, it was a lot more wholesome, a lot more playful. And in this chapter, we're seeing what happens to Shiki from Universe 2. And he's, again, stuck on a planet with bots. But it's a lot darker, a lot more somber. And again, it gets you just tugging at the heartstrings. Not to mention the whole sweet Rebecca me too. Like that by itself. Woo, I don't know. Hey, Ice Fox says 606. I don't want to ignore you. I just want to say hi since you said hi back. I hope everything's going well with you, and I hope you've been enjoying the stream and my discussions. And again, I'm still kind of perplexed by all this with this chapter in a very good way. And like I said before, where we go moving forward is going to be the thing that's really interesting. And as I've said before, this is only still just the beginning of the backstory. Yet also, it's the start of the volume. So, if I had to take a prediction guess on how many chapters we're gonna have this for, I mean, in the last stream I said what, like maybe like up to 205, 206. I don't think it's gonna be 205, 206. If I had to extend it just a little bit, I'm gonna say maybe 207, maybe 208. If I'm to make a guess, I think 207, 208 at the most is probably where we're gonna go with this. And considering that this whole backstory with Ziggy is something Hero planned out like a long time ago, like when the series started, much like how he planned the 3-year time skip. Like I said, we're only just getting started, and I can't wait to see what Hero has in store for us. I really can't. But with that being said, you guys, that's pretty much it. Again, I'm gonna give the chapter a pure perfection rating, which in numerical terms, that's a 10 out of 10. And yeah, that's pretty much it on this week's chapter of Eden Zero. Let me know what you guys thought on the chapter. How did you guys feel about the beginnings of Ziggy's backstory? And what do you guys we're gonna get moving forward? Let me know what you guys thought on the comments below. And aside from that, guys, that's pretty much it. I'm Lucky7. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more Eden Zero, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace.